Well, glad to be here and extremely thankful before I start really talking about defense, just extremely thankful for the opportunity to be in this position, to be at this university. You know, Coach Montgomery gave me the opportunity to come with him back in January of 2015. Been forever grateful to him for that opportunity to get here and to be at this level and to get to coach with him and the amazing staff that he's been able to assemble and put together, and the continuity and consistency that we've been able to uphold. You know, it's been a blessing to me, been a huge blessing, you know, beyond me professionally and personally, but for also my family. And you know, I got a daughter that goes to school here, and she'll be getting a degree from here in less than a year, and so been a huge opportunity for us and my entire family. Extremely thankful to get to have gotten the opportunity to work with Bill Young, and what a phenomenal defensive mind, and he is certainly epitomizes a guy that forgot more than I ever dreamt of learning and or knowing, and so to have been under his mentorship and to be you know, doing and him just mentoring me to get into this position, help me to be in this position. I'm forever grateful to him as well. But excited about the season, excited about our kids, excited about our players. We've had a great winter off season, had a great spring ball. The guys have really rallied around, you know, what we implemented defensively last year at this time. It was very new. We had not even played a game with it. There was a lot of questions about it, and you know, had some concerns and some worries and things of that nature, because you just hadn't stepped out on the battlefield with this defense before, and this scheme of defense. And now we have those things, and we know what some of those answers are and where the deficiencies were. And so we wanted to continue to stay the path that we're on, but yet add in the things and install the dynamics that will make us a better defense. And so had a tremendous fall from a pass defense last year, you know, ranking in the top 10 in the nation in pass defense, and want to obviously continue that strength. And but obviously at the same time, we've got to get a lot better in our rush defense. And so we did a lot of things defensively in the spring to help us in that. We need to counterbalance those things and help us remain in that top 10, so to speak, and very dominant from a pass defense aspect. But let's try to be as dominant from a run defense as well. And so the coaches, very fortunate to have a great staff with a lot of continuity on staff. Coach Aaron Fletcher coaches our corners, and he's been here the entire time that we've been here together. You know, Coach Buckles is our safeties coach. Coach Luke Olson, who has been here, you know, is now coaching our middle safety. Coach Jamal Ashley is our defensive line coach. So been very fortunate to maintain the continuity with them, and excited about that. And all of these guys, what they bring to the table has really helped us defensively. And so excited to get this thing started, excited to get into the season, and certainly going to get our mettle tested right off the bat with Michigan State.
You mentioned a couple times there getting better run defense-wise. Your personnel's, you know, mostly the same, so you know what you have there. Another year in the system, basing out of the 3-3-5. How do you go about doing that? Is it just individual guys getting better? Is there anything more than that you can do to try and?
Well, I think there has to be more than you know, just those individual guys getting better. Although that is a huge aspect and something that they've put a lot of work into and a lot of effort, and you know, through winter workouts, summer conditioning, spring training, all of that business. And so obviously there are some things that you got to do defensively, schematically, to help those things, but yet remain and stick to the roots of what you do defensively. We're kind of in that system of keep it simple and let them play fast. And but at the same time, you want to keep it fun and you know, don't want them to be worried about making mistakes. You limit mistakes by making it simple, making it very dynamic for them, and we're going to bring a lot of hats to the football. We're going to relate a lot of guys to the box in a variety of different ways to help us from that run defense aspect. And so that's been a big focus for us coaching-wise. Our players, our defensive, especially our front guys, know it specifically, and they've taken it to heart. And so they know exactly where we've got to improve and what we've got to do it.
Two questions for you.
Yes,
but
sir.
They're on opposite ends of the spectrum. So one is, I'm glad you mentioned Coach Young, maybe some of the things you took from him after
Yes, sir.
45 years in the coaching, college coaching business, 50 years, I guess, overall. Can you describe maybe some, lessons you got from him over the recent years?
I don't know, how much time do we have?
That much.
I think the biggest thing with him, and I can remember the first time ever getting to talk to him. Obviously, I knew who Coach Bill Young was. I mean, he's a legend in football in general, and in particular college football. And being a defensive guy and knowing what kind of defensive mind he has and the success that he's had at numerous places. I remember the first time getting to talk to him and thinking to myself, Coach Montgomery said, "Hey, Coach Young wants to interview you," and I thought to myself, "Holy cow! How do I interview with this guy?" And just how down to earth, number one, he is. I think being a little bit impressed and excited to be on that staff, and him just letting you take the reins of a lot of things, which I'm sure is extremely hard, for him, because he had so much knowledge and stuff. But to let you and to let us as a staff go through the school of hard knocks, so to speak. And there's only one really good way that you can learn those things, and that's to go through them. His adjustments, game time, on the field, and what he sees and things of that nature, that's probably the biggest thing that I've taken from him. I know year one, some of the stuff that he would, adjustment-wise, would do, probably didn't make a whole lot of sense to me at the time. I'm just relaying exactly what he's telling me and trying to get that to the kids on the field and get that out on the playing field and get it executed and all that stuff. But then spending time with him, after games and on weekends, and what is it that you saw and what made you go to this, and him just sharing that knowledge with you, and he really simplified the game. And so extremely blessed and excited to have been on that staff with him.
Generation, Zaven Collins, and the potential that he has. It just seems remarkable. Any stories of his athletic ability out there on the practice field that you can share with us that will illustrate what kind of player maybe he has?
Well, I think, Zaven's still going through the learning process, honestly. And so everything that you've been able to see out of Zaven Collins has been 100% coaching. And no, Zaven is a phenomenal athlete, and he was a phenomenal athlete in high school, multi-sport player, the dominant player at whatever sport that he was playing. But Zaven is a guy that we recruited that, he was a quarterback in high school and had never played linebacker. And so for him to come out and execute and do some of the things that he did out on the football field for us last season, the impact that he made for us almost instantaneously, and the improvement that he made from game to game, week to week, practice to practice. And Zaven's still learning, and he's extremely intelligent. Academically, everything, and extremely intelligent, extremely hungry, and he knows the opportunities that lie here before him personally, and what type of impact he can make on this team.
Yeah, so just kind of hitting on maybe I'll say the evolution of offenses over the years. You went from the triple option stuff to the power run, now we're air raid stuff, but now teams are starting to go back to using more tight ends, more fullbacks. How have you seen that on the defensive side of the ball, and how have you guys been able to adjust to the ever-changing trends, I guess?
Well, and it is, defenses. If you talk to an offensive guy, they're always wanting to keep the defense a step behind, obviously, and defenses are always having to adjust to offenses and what they're doing, and it used to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust and packing 22 guys in between the hashes and all that business, and then obviously we went into the evolution of spreading it from sideline to sideline and throwing the ball all over the field, and defenses had to make adjustments, and it takes a little while to for those things to happen and come up with schemes and things of that nature. And so now, there's a whole lot of defenses out there, a whole lot of teams that, run odd front defenses. And it helps them to adjust to, spreading the field and doing those things. A little bit more checking and adjustments when you're running a four-man and a four-man front. And so, the odd front allows you to play a little bit faster. And then, some of the answers for offenses has been, going with 12 personnel and getting 2 tight ends on the field, whether that was 2 backs in the backfield and a fullback and things of that nature, and try to ground and pound a little bit. And so, it affects you from a recruiting standpoint, from a schematic standpoint. You got to find hybrid type guys that can play safeties, that can spin down and play outside linebackers. You got to have outside linebackers that can possibly step up and play foot nines, rush edges, and things of that nature. And so, it's continuously changing, and I think that's what makes this game so fun and makes it so exciting, and there's so many dynamics that are involved with the entire game of football, offensively, defensively, and special teams.
Going back to what you said about last season, not knowing, what those changes were going to result in on the field,
Sure.
Did you feel like the potential was there for that kind of turnaround?
I think, going into it, we were certainly hopeful for that potential. And there's some dynamics that you don't get to really see through spring ball as you're installing and through fall camp that we were asking, some of our players to do. And just from the simple standpoint, you want to keep people healthy. And then all of a sudden, when you get into game time, now you're asking certain guys to come set edges that have never had to do that, and to be run forcers and things of that nature, to be counted in the box that typically aren't counted in the box, and can they uphold and can they execute this? And so. It was a growing trend every week, Kelly, but it was something that we found out real quick. This is who we want to be. This is what we want to be about. You just can't throw everything in there all at once that you want to do with it. And, just as a coach, you're itching to sit there and install more and put in more and help yourself. But at the same time, you got to have that delicate balance of keeping guys, just like Coach Montgomery said, allow them to play a little bit free. And if we've done our job recruiting, then we've surrounded ourselves with some great football players, great talent. Let that talent and everything go out there on the field and execute wins for you. And you as a coach just try to put them in the very best position and allow them to play fast.
When you have a season like that and you have so many guys back, does that just raise the expectations, amongst the players as much as anything?
Oh, absolutely. And whether we had that many guys coming back right now or not, our expectations would still be the same. But the great thing right now is that we do have a whole lot of guys from a defensive aspect, 7, 8, 9 guys that got significant, if not, 90+% of the playing time in 12 ball games last year, stepping out on the field. Some of those, your Cooper Evanstons, your Diamond Cannons, your Travis Gibsons, your Manny Bunches, your Reggie Robinsons, your Shamar Robinson, all those guys. And I know I'm leaving people off, but all of those guys that have not only got significant playing time last year, they got significant playing time years before that. And then you have a gentleman like Cullen Wick and Jackson Blair and Tyree Stevenson and Zaven Collins coming in and making such an impact that they made. Obviously, there's a huge level of excitement going into that. But, what you draw up on the board, what you put on paper, what you should be and everything is one thing. You got to go out there and execute it out on the field. And they're hungry. They know what they got to do. They know what they're made of. And they know what time of season this is going to be for us.
Coach, you mentioned keeping things simple, right, moving forward. Last year, new scheme, limited some things, did a handful of things really well.
Absolutely.
This year, how do you kind of juxtapose keeping it simple, but then opening the playbook a little bit more because we've got a year in the system and guys are already comfortable not learning from scratch?
Well, and that's what I was trying to allude to earlier is you got to make everything correspond with what you already know, and by the way you install, by the way you call the defense, and what you're trying to execute and get out of this defense, if you can relate it to what you're already doing, makes it very simple for those guys. And now all of a sudden, once they understand the dynamic of, hey, we're given the illusion of a 4-man box, but we want to have a 6 or 7-man box out of this, and we can bring that in a number of different ways. And you got to play the system a little bit, and so having the opportunity now, getting that full year under our belt, and now having the opportunity to branch out and go into those other systems that we want to add into this, I think is going to be extremely advantageous. And we'll get tested right off the bat with Michigan State because they're so multiple offensively.
Joe, if you don't mind, just your response to the question about urgency that I asked Philip. I assume it's different. It feels different coming off a 2, when you win 2 or 3 versus 9 or 10. Could you address if there is a heightened sense of that around the program right now?
Well, me personally, a heightened sense of urgency. I don't know, as coaches, you always feel that sense of urgency. I've been fortunate and blessed to, I've been here when we had the 10-win season, and you come off of that, and you've got a sense of urgency to maintain and grow from that and get better from that. And then, there's urgency that comes with just starting a new season. But there's urgency sitting there, knowing that we've got a lot of guys that have put in a lot of time, a lot of effort, made a great deal of sacrifices, for this school, for this university, for each other, for this team, for this staff, for this community, this city. They feel the sense of urgency to sit there and do it for a number of reasons. And, but number one, doing it for those brothers that you locker beside, that you play beside, that you stand on the sideline, work with, and all of that business. And so, yes, sir, whether it came off of a 3-win season or a 10-win season, the urgency is always going to be there.
The length and size you have, especially with corners, but in the defensive backfield, you guys have recruited that obviously for a reason. There are a number of schools. It seems like doing that more and more. What does that give you? What is the advantage when you can put that kind of size on the field?
Well, I think it's huge, and especially what we're asking them to do defensively, especially with the mix of looks that we want to give quarterbacks, that we want to give opposing offenses. We're going to ask a lot of guys in the secondary to do a lot of things, and the traditional type corners, having speed, lockdown guys, standing out there in space and playing on an island. We're still going to have to do those things, and then all of a sudden, you're going to be a guy that we're expecting to come and set the edge and take on pulling guards and tackles and things of that nature. So you're going to have some size and some length with that. And you're asking safeties and middle safeties and guys all to do the same thing. And so, it's one of those things from a recruiting standpoint. It changes the dynamics of what you're recruiting a little bit. But we also feel like the defense that we're running right now, we feel like we can recruit easier and recruit better and for that. And so, there was a number of reasons why we wanted to go to this style of defense, and recruiting's one of them.
Last question, John.
So I was just going to ask kind of a similar question, similar position. What were you going to do with all those cornerbacks you have? That was going to be my question. Because there's a lot of guys who are built the same, a lot of guys who have a lot of the same skill sets, a lot of guys that have experience. How do you get them all? It's a nice problem to have, I'm sure, but how do you get them all on the field?
Well, and I think, and that is a great question. And if you were sitting out, what I alluded to just a moment ago, playing on the island, and that's what you do, and you're going to be a lockdown guy or a deep third guy. It's hard to sit there and rotate those guys in. But when you're asking them to, be great run forcers, be great man-to-man guys that are going to have to run down the field and cover, sometimes with help, sometimes without help. You're going to have to, what we're asking them to do, you're going to have more than just two guys. And we've got 4 to 6 guys that are very solid right now that we're extremely excited about, and every one of them going to have significant playing time because of it. And then you change it from game to game. Depending upon strengths. I mean, every guy, you don't want to create the same exact monster for every young man. You find out what their strength is, and then if the offense that we're facing this particular week fits his strengths and everything a little bit better, then maybe he sees the field a bit more. And so it's advantageous for us defensively.
Thank you. Thank you, Coach.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Again, we'll